Guys, welcome to Boston Mom Talk. We have Paige. I'm literally so pumped about this. Anyone who has a phone knows Paige's face by now. She's constantly going viral. I always say she's like the Lorax for the wives and the mothers about mental load, everything we experience with the marriage equality, and just everything. I'm literally so excited that she's here.
Thank you. Paige, we're so happy to have you, and we're so glad that you live like 20 minutes away. This is a little conglomerate of like New England content creators, and
We love to
I
see
couldn't
it.
be more excited.
But tell us like how you got to where you're at and just a little bit about yourself before we jump into all of the beautiful and gorgeous mom and naming things.
Sure. I mean, I had no intentions of this being my career, being a content creator, but about 2.5 years ago, give or take, I was working for a clothing company. And we, like every other clothing company, were posting videos on TikTok. And I wanted to try and understand that algorithm better because we were trying to understand organic growth. And the TikTok algorithm is this like beast that people wanted to figure out. And so I decided to start posting. I didn't want anyone to know, which is why my handle is at She's a Page Turner. That is not my name. And also everybody's handles were like punny back then. It was always like a funny handle.
Yeah.
I love like the pipeline from wanting the anonymity on TikTok to making it your job.
It did my literal job.
Yeah.
It's like AIM in the
Yeah.
beginning, like what was your screen name? It's like a little cringe.
Yeah. I'm okay with the page turner for now. I'm like, I'll stick with this. But yeah, I started posting and just trying to figure out the algorithm. And I decided I would post on what I knew, which was being a working mom of 4 kids. And so I just started talking about things like childcare and the logistics of being a working parent. And eventually that snowballed into what it is today, where I talk a lot about gender equity as it pertains to marriage, parenting, our careers, childcare, all of those things. And that has led me to talk about things like the mental load because all of it's so connected. And so, yeah, I had no real intentions when I started, yet
Here we are.
No, it's amazing. And I think like obviously I'm a younger mom. Have a newer marriage on that side of things. It's been so helpful to me to hear someone like put into words what everyone struggles with. And it's really helped me to get my marriage off like on the right foot. I feel like you were coming up on TikTok rather quickly, but right along the same time that like I started having kids and I entered this whole like arena of life. So you've kind of just like been there the entire time, which has been really nice. And I really like appreciate what you've been doing. And I do feel like it ties into what we see a lot in the baby naming side of things.
Absolutely. Like the complicated dynamics of partners trying to name a kid together. Sometimes I really do feel like I'm a therapist doing this and like trying to get people to like meet in the middle and like take the emotion out of it and try to find the common ground.
Because it's so emotional. Everything's so personal. And I think like what I see the most, by far what I get asked the most is, I love X, Y, and Z. I can't get my husband on board. And it becomes this
What
big
are the
thing.
names that husbands hate? Just drop them. Drop them here.
First of all of them. But mostly the ones that I see, the old lady names.
Okay.
They do not like those. Like Maxine. I love Maxine.
Okay.
And anytime I mention it, even my husband is like, no,
Yeah.
veto.
Theodora.
Oh,
Like that's
yeah.
that's not passing.
Yeah.
too
No.
bad.
Yeah, too bad.
I think the whimsical names too.
Yeah.
Like the things that you might name your like fairy. Marigold.
Exactly. They
Yeah.
love to say that's a bullyable name. They love talking about
Yeah.
movie references, bullyable names, everything. The random kid they went to second grade with, his cat's name, they can't use the name because there's crossover. Like just constantly looking for reasons to veto, I feel. And I would say by far that's the biggest hurdle parents I talk to.
I think so too. I think it's like it's hard enough to get one person to love a name enough to make this like permanent choice, let alone to get a second person to be like, yeah, this is what I want to call my kid for the rest of their life.
100%. I think that like a lot of what you talk about, I have like applied to getting my husband on board with names. I feel like when we were originally naming Pierce, that was the hardest. He honestly shaped up and really got it together when we were naming our second. And he was like down for it. He's like, poet, Gaia, let's go.
I
Like,
can't believe you got those by him.
I know. He was down by then. But at first, he really just was like making game out of it. He was constantly vetoing and not providing any input. So I said, okay, if you don't like these 20 names that I recommended, what do you have to bring to the table?
Yeah.
This is something that comes up all the time, though, in relationships that I think is worth addressing in parenting in particular. I did a video once where I talked about the difference between opinionated parenting and informed parenting, where I know because I read about it and I talk to the doctor that I need to cut my kids' grapes. Yeah. Like, I know that. I know it's the number one choking hazard, right? Alongside like popcorn and lollipops. I know this. But a lot of men will say, I don't think it's a big deal. Well, that's an opinion.
Yeah.
It's not based on any information or like research or work, right? And so I think you're saying the same thing with naming, which is I'm coming to you. And I've spent a lot of time thinking about names, and I read a baby name book by Colleen, and I've done all these things, and these are some names that I love. And the husband's just saying, well, I don't like them because X, Y, and Z, or I don't think that's a good name. Okay, well, what are you bringing to the conversation then? Because you can also bring suggestions and you can also bring ideas. Do the work with me.
Absolutely.
Like, let's do this work together. And I think oftentimes women lead these conversations and have a lot of thoughts and come very informed, and men come and say, I don't know, but I don't like it.
Yeah. I honestly find my biggest tip when you're facing this, if you have a partner that you cannot get to like on board with any of your names and you just feel like they're not like approaching it how you need them to, my biggest tip, if you're trying to not convince someone but get them to take a name that you care about seriously, is how you present it to them, making sure you frame it as being a serious suggestion. I think we get into this like veto loop of no, you're shooting out 25 names that you're just like lukewarm about. And then you lump in one that you feel so passionate about and it gets vetoed too, because that's the vibe of the conversation. What I did to get my husband on board with the names that I was so passionate about and were very serious to me is I framed it of, I'm going to present this to you. Please don't answer. Don't tell me how you feel. Sit with it.
Yeah.
I need you to really absorb it. I feel strongly. Sit with it for 20 minutes. I texted him on the way home from work one day and said, this is the name that I really feel strongly about for our son. Sit with it while you drive. Think about it. Imagine on our child and then come back to me. And if you don't like it, I respect that. But I need you to really try to imagine it. And that ended up being the one that worked. And then I did the same for Darcy. And that was how we got to the finish line. And that's my biggest recommendation for people, is to make sure you're not casually suggesting things
Like,
that aren't
tee it up.
casual to you.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
I think along with that, the other thing, like if you got a veto on a name you mentioned, like when you were, 2 weeks pregnant, don't give up on it. First of all, I think you can like expose them to it more and more. So I think you've mentioned this to me before. Like if you have a TV show that a character's in and you love the name, like I think there's a Maeve in Westworld, I've heard people say. So like let them have a positive connection with the character. Yeah. I've had people say they've put it on a Post-it note. They'll just like put a name on a Post-it note on their husband's mirror, and just kind of like lightly drop it. So funny. Like how you used to give like engagement ring hints. Or
hints,
or did you not?
I sent a link.
Being a little one with allergies has historically forced parents into difficult compromises, often feeling like a no-win situation between bad and worse. Many allergy-friendly formulas are packed with undesirable sugars, entirely different from human milk carbohydrates, and other ingredients that taste unpleasant and smell even worse. This leaves parents feeling as though they're offering something more clinical than nourishing. Harmony offers nutrition as nature intended. Inspired by human milk, its formulas maximize the use of human milk identical ingredients that are clean and gentle. Designed to be naturally accepted by babies, the composition nourishes, supports gut health, and empowers families to feed with confidence and peace of mind. You can get involved and help make a difference by joining their crowdfunding as an early bird investor using the link in our description.
I think you can like sort of get them on board by bringing it up again and again. My husband also forgot he vetoed names. So that was another strategy.
That's beautiful.
And then I think there can be a common ground. Like that's the other thing. People will ask, like, does one of us have to give in to the other person's name, or do we find a compromise name? I think it's different for every person. But I think keep an open mind that like you can find another name that you love. I think we were talking about this example yesterday when we were chatting of like a couple where one person likes Bernadette, the like very like nursing home name, and one person likes Olivia, like the number one name. Of course, it's the man who likes Olivia.
Yeah. They love the top 10.
Finding the common ground is like finding the sort of vintage names that are already back and don't feel as heavily grandma, like Hazel and Violet, Lucy.
Yeah,
or
absolutely.
it might be a little more palatable.
Yeah, and I think it's important like to make the dad in this context feel involved, and like that's your first parenting decision as a joint couple. Regardless of family structure, your partner that you're co-parenting with, you need to make this decision together to set the tone of your parenting, especially if you're first-time parents, like to make them feel like we're doing this together that's going to set the tone for how you parent moving forward. That was how I felt with Jake. I was like, I care about your opinion because we're doing this together. It's a group project. It is a group project. Like, I'm not taking on more of this than you.
Yeah.
So I don't get to make the executive decision just because it's my womb and just because, you know, I may be breastfeeding after this and whatever. We're still doing this together. So that like really helps set the tone for us.
Well, you also said it that, you know, we come to this with a lot of emotions and feelings, right? If you feel really passionately about a certain kind of name, there's probably a reason why. And one of the things I tell couples all the time is if you want to actually have a productive conversation, start with the goal. Like, what is your goal with this conversation? For me, when I talk about the mental load, it's, hey, we want to share this work in a more fair way because I'm burnt out. We want more time where we're not fighting with the dishwasher, but we are going on date nights. Yeah. We don't have to fight about the dishwasher. We can plan something. And I think with names, we forget that sometimes we have connotations with names based on our own lived experience, right? And so I talk a lot about standards with couples because the way you like the laundry is different than the way I like the laundry, but that's okay. We need to come to a compromise and understand, why do you care so much about the laundry, right? Like, I might say to my husband, I fold it this way because I have learned over the last 3 years, when I fold it this way, the kids are able to find what they need and they make less of a mess. And so I fold it like this for a reason, not just because I want to, right? It's not just
because I like to tell you you're doing it wrong.
Exactly. And so same thing with baby names. Somebody might say, I actually don't like that name because it has a silly nickname. And when I was a kid, people always called me this silly nickname and I didn't like it. Like, if you have that conversation, it's typically very different and a lot more productive than a
less hostile.
than a veto
absolutely.
conversation. Exactly.
Yeah. And it's like you were saying with the whole TV show, like kind of planting the seeds, I find you have to be very cognizant of who your partner is and how they'll respond to that. Because what are your kids' names?
Sure. So I have 4 kids. My 2 oldest are adopted through foster care, so I don't share their names for their biological families' privacy. But my 2 younger are biological. So my oldest is Sutton and my younger one is Lennon.
So Sutton is a perfect example of names that we often find in TV movies that is like the bitchy character. If you have a significant other that is susceptible to like taking that and like running with it,
not being able to like see outside of this, like names can belong to anybody and have different vibes depending on who's wearing them. What the family's vibe is that use the name can totally change sort of the tone of it.
When I wanted Darcy, I put on something borrowed because I don't know if anyone, the blonde girl is Darcy.
Yes.
And she is, you know, she's a little eccentric. She's a little risque. And so I know that my husband's not going to take that and then go, we can't name her that because X, Y. I was like, I just want you to hear Darcy for 90 minutes.
Yeah. Like,
and
it's
know
personified.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And know if it makes you sick of hearing it. And he was like, no, I'm down. Yeah. And so it didn't ruin it for him. But obviously, like, you know, your partner best. If that's going to like leave a bad taste in their mouth, if it's an undesirable character, do not use that tip. Use a different one because that can backfire. But
I heard Sutton on a TV show, which is where I found it. And I don't even think I told my husband that is where I heard it. I just presented it because I knew he wouldn't like the show. And he'd also be like, you heard a name on a TV show and now we have to name our baby this name.
Like, it's too trivial.
Right. Yeah. But it's also how I was named. My parents said they heard the name on a TV show and they named me Paige. And so I think, you know, there's something to be said about having a name come into your consciousness. Like, I had never heard that name before.
And it struck you.
And I loved it. I heard it and I was like, I really like this name. And I couldn't even tell you anything about that character right now. It had nothing to do with the TV show or the character, and which is why I didn't tell my husband about it. But a lot of people will ask me, oh, Real Housewives. I guess there's a Sutton on that.
Oh, I don't watch that either.
Right. I've never seen it. I'm like, I don't think the name Sutton. I don't think Real Housewives. But for someone else, they do.
And that would be like a hard stop.
Right. And so that's the thing. It's like everybody has different opinions and different ways they come across names. And for me, I knew not to present the television show.
I had the same situation. I had to kind of leave it out when I found Pierce's name. Did I find it from the 2008 Celtics roster? Yeah. Sure. Is that any of Jake's business? Absolutely not. He's a Nashville kid, you know, with California roots. He doesn't want ties to the Celtics. Yeah. He's not interested.
Into Paul Pierce?
No. And I was like, he is no. And so afterwards he goes,
it's a bit more niche than Brady.
Yeah. Like, he goes, wait, is our next kid going to be Tatum? I said, if they win this year. And then they won. And I was like, oh no, our girl's going to be Tatum. But yeah, you sometimes just have to leave out a little bit of information. It's fine. If they find out later, great.
Also, speaking of, like, we were just talking about sibling name cohesion on our last episode. I think Sutton and Lennon just make sense together. They're giving cool girl. Mm-hmm. They're both gender neutral, but girl leaning, like used more often for girls, not so much like a boyish girl name.
And they're not too matchy-matchy.
Not too matchy.
I don't find them to be
but
matchy-matchy at all.
cohesive.
Yeah, it's perfect.
So I'm curious if you thought about that when you were naming them, or if it was just like, I think sometimes people just do gravitate.
You just have a
towards
strong
names.
style.
Yeah.
No, so Lennon was my number one girl name. It was always my number one girl name, top of my list. When I have a daughter, her name will be Lennon.
Okay.
And then I got pregnant with Sutton, and I was, found out she was a girl, and I said to my husband, her name is not Lennon. And he was like, are you kidding me? He was so annoyed with me. He's like, that's the most annoying thing you've ever done. He's like, you picked a name.
Were you picking up like vibes from the womb?
Yeah, just something
Okay.
about the pregnancy, something about how I was feeling at that time. I was like, it's just not her name.
I'm the
I was
exact
like,
same
it's
way.
not
You
her
are.
name. And I couldn't tell you why, because I loved that name. I wanted that name.
It just wasn't hers. It was someone else.
No, and even when I was pregnant with Lennon was still top of our list for a girl. And when I found out it was a girl, I toyed around with a different name. I loved the name Lake, and my husband vetoed Lake. He tried to get on board. He did. He really tried.
It's very vetoable.
Yeah,
It
he
is.
vetoed
It's
it.
a tough one.
But which is fine. And so I was like, okay, Lake is vetoed. I still love Lennon. And so we played around with Lennon, and I was like, yeah, I love Lennon. Like, this is the name. And now that she's here, I'm like, yeah, she's 100% a Lennon. I'm so glad. When I look at the two of them, I'm like, I am so glad we saved that name for her and named you Sutton. Like,
That's
you
kind of
are your
amazing.
names. It makes sense to me.
Yeah.
But it had nothing to do with trying to make them cohesive. And at the time, I don't even think I knew about like baby naming TikTok.
Yeah.
Now I do. Like,
It was
now
a simpler time.
it was a simpler time.
Yeah.
Now I'm so sucked into these videos, and I don't have any more things to name. I'm like, I have nothing left to name. I love these videos though.
But you're like, pick Sutton, pick Sutton.
Pick Sutton. Well, people have opinions on Sutton, and I get it. And I don't know if you guys talk about this on this podcast, and this might be a little rogue for you, but I feel very strongly about, if you love a name, say the name. So in my family, like when
Okay.
I was pregnant, I would say her name is Sutton, very strongly, very loud, and I would say this is her name. And so
Okay.
I didn't save it for when she was born. I told everyone what her name
That
was.
is rogue, Paige.
I know, but I felt so strongly about saying, like, I don't care your opinion. I didn't ask for opinions. I said, this is her name.
It doesn't shock me.
And you can't steal it. Right?
You can't steal it, and you can't bash it.
Exactly.
Like, the decision is made. It's not up for debate.
Yeah. So I don't know. Like, part of it for me was just like, I felt really strongly about what their names were once we landed on them. And so then I was like, okay, I'm going to just tell everybody.
Yeah.
Because I also didn't want to get confused and think like, oh, they don't match or something like that. And I also think we got to let go of that a little bit, because our older two kids are not our biological children. We fostered them.
It almost
And so-
frees you from having to.
Yeah, I didn't have any decision making in their names. We chose to keep their biological names for them. And so it's not like I wasn't trying to match their names, or, I wasn't trying to do anything with it.
Yeah.
I was just like, this is the name we love, and this is the name we're picking, and this is what her name is. So it was just very
It's so simple, so
No,
lovely.
That's perfect. I do totally agree with you. In certain family structures, that is the way to go. You say the name. I think like my family, I told my entire family, like Christmas, every single thing in the bag said Darcy Dove on it. It was like, it was to the point that my stepdad, we hadn't told him the name, and he goes,
what is this?
who the heck's Darcy? And my mom was like, oh, that's for Darcy. That's the baby. Like, everyone knows. But I do think there are those people that have those families that it will just poison the name.
Sure.
And I know that if my family knows something's important to me and I've like made the decision that I've made, they're not going to try and like just ruin it.
Yeah.
But if you have a ruining family that no matter what you like, they're going to
For
ruin,
sure.
it's definitely a very different situation.
If you followed us for a while, you'll know that me and Colleen love Wally cases. And obviously everyone on TikTok does too. They're gorgeous, they're aesthetic, and they're super functional. But above all else, we really support the company's founders. Nick and Jenna actually started a nonprofit organization to help give back and support families going through difficult times. Every month, Wally chooses a day to donate a portion of the day's sales to the Wally Gives Back Foundation, and they've already donated over $1.5 million so far. You can use code NAME911 at checkout. And thank you, Wally, for everything you do.
I also feel like, I think a lot of people don't say it because they don't want somebody to steal it or to give opinions, which I
Yeah,
totally
I think that's the
understand.
biggest
I
thing.
think that's valid. But I would also say, we have a mutual friend, Colleen and I, and we were in a group chat with this girl we haven't seen in like 12 years. Not in the group chat with her, but she recently named her child. And my friend was like, I love that name. Now I can't use it. And I was like, why? I was like, we haven't seen
Yeah.
that person in 10 years. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter. But I think we live in this time of social media where
Over-connected.
we we know too many names, right? Like, we hear too many names. We feel closer to people than we actually are. And so it can kind of take names off the table. But I just felt like in my community of friends and with my family, I could just say it and they would respect it and not give me their opinions. And we're also just, I mean, we're all New Englanders here. Yeah. I think we're very open. And so like,
honest,
my sister,
direct.
Yeah.
I'm not a native
Blunt.
New Englander and I've learned the way.
Oh, yeah.
And to take things a little less personally.
Yeah. My sister's kids' names are all, we call them simple dog names. You know, like that's her vibe. And
Milo, Max.
Her son's Milo.
Oh my God.
Wait, guess a girl name. Cause she's
Charlie? Ella.
No, you're
Hazel.
so close. Sadie.
Sadie. Okay.
The only Sadie I know was a Samoyed named Sadie Mae.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but
wait, those are so cute though. Milo and Sadie.
That's the thing. There's such a negative connotation to the dog name thing. I knew a dog named Jess. Get over it. It is not like a reason to not use a name. Absolutely.
Well, she chose the names too, and she knows that's her vibe. Like when she was trying to name Milo, she was like, my vibe. She's like, I want an M because
she's like, picture a golden retriever.
Yeah, she's like, I want a simple, cute, doggish name, and I'm like, great, like that's easy.
I think the appeal of those is that they feel like a lot of people are picturing the name on a little kid, and dog names feel cute. And so
they feel warm.
It's like Milo. You can picture this adorable little like 2-year-old Milo.
Someone loyal.
Yeah, they're friendly.
Yeah. What's his name? Milo Ventimiglia. Is that how you say his last name?
Yes.
That's also, I feel like people
That's
like him. People like him.
Yeah,
positive
people
associations.
Like he did well in Hollywood. Okay, one other strategy I think for getting your partner involved. This is something we did when we went on our baby moon with George, just for fun. Dan went on ChatGPT and just started having a conversation with ChatGPT about baby names and then contributed some like legitimate ideas. But it was also he doesn't want to read a baby name book. Like this was a fun way that appealed to him to sort of like discover some names.
And it might be a good place to start because like we've said, you had your notes up.
Oh,
ready.
I had a notes app from like 18 years old.
Oh, absolutely. I was 15 sitting on the couch with my friends at sleepovers watching SJ Strum on YouTube do her baby name
oh my gosh.
rundowns. I have always had a baby name list. My husband did not have a baby name list.
Most don't.
They don't know where to start. And I think it's like we come in with like all this baggage of like, but I'm emotionally attached to Lennon. I'm emotionally attached to Vienna. Right. Like we come in with that. They don't have it. And a good place to start might be ChatGPT just to get like the ball rolling. That's a really
just
great,
start to see what you like.
A great call.
You
yeah.
know,
just for them to feel like they have something to contribute because they don't even know where to start.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would also say like my piece of advice to all couples before they become parents is to talk about things before you're parents, right? So like before you're pregnant and you're attached to this baby or you're adopting or whatever it is, if you'd already talked about names prior, you're just so much further ahead. And so like it might not be the names that you use, but I tell couples this all the time. Talk about the laundry before you have kids. Talk about all of these things, how you want your careers to look before the kids come. Same thing with names. Like my husband and I had already gone over the list of names and I added his names to my list so that they were on there. And so we'd already been talking about names well before we became parents. And so it wasn't like we became pregnant.
The pressure
and we
wasn't on yet. It does get very heightened because then the clock starts and you're like, well, we need to figure this out. And I do think it makes you overthink things during that time. So you have a little more clarity, I think, before. So we know that baby naming is a little bit more challenging in 2025, likely because of social media. I think about this a lot. Do you think that parenting is harder in 2025 than it was in, let's say, like 1990 when our parents were doing it? Like, do you think it's harder now?
I don't know that I can say it's harder because I didn't parent in 1990 and I don't know that we like statistically can say it's harder, blanket statement. I think the expectations of parents are very different than they were in the 1990s.
Astronomical.
So different. And
we want it all.
Yeah. And I think there's just so much more. One of the things I talk about all the time is that there is a ton of societal pressure and expectations that are placed on parents, but more specifically mothers, right? And we often experience harsh judgment for whatever we choose to do. You choose to breastfeed, formula feed, baby-led wean, baby carry, not baby, whatever. There are so many opinions. And now because we have social media, we hear them constantly. And so it can be very, very difficult to parent, I think, just in the world of social media because you have information overload, but you also have all of these expectations and standards you're being held to.
You're always doing everything wrong.
Exactly. No matter what you choose.
Or you can't decide what to do because there's like too much.
So you're just doing nothing at all because
Yes. And I think I say mothers in particular experience this because I also joke with people. If you look at my husband's feed on his Instagram, it's like woodworking videos.
Why is it always woodworking? Why it's always Lowe's?
Yeah. Well, that and like this old house, right? Like he's like, I love this stuff. That's his feed. And when he became a dad, it didn't change.
Yours is like busy toddler, Dr. Becky.
Exactly. It's
Baby-led weaning.
all of it, right? The second you become pregnant, it's like the algorithm knows, because they do actually. They actually do know. And women start getting fed all of this motherhood and baby and parenting content. And no wonder we take on a bulk of the responsibility. Like, we're being fed this constantly. And I think what's interesting is, I talk a lot about being a working mother. And when I say the expectations have changed, one of the things that I saw a statistic on was that working mothers today spend more time with their children than stay-at-home moms did 40 years ago. So we're spending more
That's
time
wild.
with our children.
Yeah.
I believe it.
We're expected to be much more engaged and involved in their education, involved in their sports, involved in their extracurriculars. We're supposed to play with them and talk to them all of the time. And so it's intensive parenting, and there's these expectations specifically for moms to be doing this. And so, one of my viral videos, I guess it got picked up everywhere. It was me saying that we should stop judging moms who are on their phone at soccer practice. Because
I loved that video.
Yeah.
Well, because what do you want me to be doing? My parents used to drop me off and leave. They didn't stay.
I'm still working.
Exactly. I'm working. I'm ordering groceries. Maybe I'm reading a book. Who knows, right?
Yeah.
God forbid.
I don't need to watch my son practice because his coach is teaching him right now. I will watch his game. I will be fully involved in his game. But the expectations are different, and we hold parents to very different standards these days. And so I wouldn't say that it's quote unquote harder, but I do think we're parenting in a time where we expect dual income homes.
Mm-hmm.
We've made it incredibly difficult to be a single income home, just logistically, systemically. And then we expect parents to do more than our parents did, more than our grandparents did with our kids. And so how can you keep up? Of course, you're going to be burnt out. It's inevitable.
Yeah. My grandma is still stuck in like 1920s, and she's like, very alarmed by us all sending our kids to childcare. Like, why'd you have them if you're not going to raise them? That type of mentality. Do you get those comments on?
Every day.
Okay.
Every day. And I think the interesting.
Maybe my grandma's on TikTok.
Yeah, it's your
She's
grandma.
she's under Paige's videos.
Is her name Bernadette? No. Yeah. That narrative is frustrating, I think, because women receive it and men don't.
Yeah.
Right. And so we have these different narratives of working parents where men who work are providing for their family. Women who work are selfish. Right. We view women's careers as hobbies and men's careers as financial providing for the family. Right. It's a necessity. It's a necessity. And women are doing it for fun.
Yeah.
And we continue to have this dynamic. And so if women are choosing to work, they're choosing to let someone else raise their children. When in reality, I remember my parents saying, I grew up in the same street as all my cousins. And I was at my aunt's, or I was at my grandmother's. And there was that like quote unquote village and community. We were meant to be raised by more than one person, by more than two people. Yeah. And I also have to say, like, people say, use grandma. Grandma should provide childcare.
Yeah. I'm like, grandma's at work.
Grandma's working. Grandma's working.
Grandma's still working because she's,
Exactly. Or grandma's not here, or grandma's not physically capable, whatever it might be. But also, I bet in a lot of instances, a professional childcare provider who has been trained to care for toddlers is going to provide better care for toddlers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Family doesn't inherently mean better care.
Yeah.
It doesn't. And
cheaper, but
it's not cheap because it's somebody's time, right? So I think we've also done that thing where we expect grandma to do it, not grandpa. Yeah. And so I talk about these things all the time, but it is a frustrating narrative, I think, that women primarily receive, which is if you use childcare, you're not raising your own children. Right. And we stop saying that when they go to kindergarten. So like the expectations just change and the judgment is harsh. And I think it's difficult, and it's really hard for a lot of women just in regular life to hear that from a grandmother and to feel a real sense of guilt.
I feel it. Yeah.
The Parent Collective is a community dedicated to guiding new and expecting parents through every stage of pregnancy and early parenthood. Led by experienced nurses and midwives, the prenatal and postpartum classes offer way more than just evidence-based education on labor, recovery, and newborn care. They offer community and friendship. The Parent Collective was inspired by founder Jessica Hill's own experience of being pregnant in the UK. The support, community, and friendship she experienced there made her realize that American women deserve more. The Parent Collective offers in-person classes in select cities across the US and online worldwide. Use code Jessie10 for 10% off.
Like, especially in this job that I'm now doing that's more sort of
abstract.
Totally abstract, maybe not taken seriously by a large percentage of the population. And I do feel guilty, like, sending my kids. And there is that pull. Like, I think some people more than others want both. Like, you do want it all. And it is hard to balance and hard to do it all. I mean, I feel lucky that I get the flexibility of this type of job.
It's a double-edged sword,
It's a double-edged sword, though. Yeah. Yeah.
I got a comment right after Pierce was born. I don't know if you ever saw my response to this. This enraged me because at the time I was working a traditional 9 to 5. I wasn't even a content creator, but no one had thought to ask that. I was talking about how my husband and I are truly 50-50, and that's something I'm very grateful for. He's really phenomenal. And the comment was, well, what are you going to do when he goes back to work? Are you still going to be 50-50? I said, well, when we both go back to work, yes, we will. Thank you for asking. I work. I have a degree in public relations.
Thank you, Debbie.
I graduated from college at 20 and I've been working since.
Yeah.
I have a career. So yes, thank you. We will both still be 50-50. What do you mean when he goes back to work? Welcome to the 1950s, you crazy person. That is why, but it's like the assumption.
Yeah. And it's like, depending on how people grew up and where they live
Yeah.
and like what they're seeing around them, it can be like what they assume can be so different.
Yeah.
It is hyper dependent actually on where you grew up and what you are familiar with, because I think growing up in Massachusetts, every mom I knew worked.
Yeah.
Every single mom I knew
Interesting.
worked. I didn't know one friend with a stay-at-home mother. I didn't know
Wow.
anyone. And so for me, it was totally normalized. I was like, of course, like I'm going to work. That's not even a question. Everybody works. But I do think there's this thing, you just use the term 50-50. And I think that term is very polarizing for a lot of people. And I don't ever use it. I always say equity. We're trying to find fairness, not equal, because I believe in parenting just in general and in life. Nothing is ever equal. It's
Right.
impossible, right? It's impossible. But also this expectation for women, if you don't work, then you're not contributing in a fair way, is very frustrating, because what I think that does is it reiterates the fact that we prioritize, we live in a capitalistic society, we prioritize paid labor over unpaid labor. And your time at home with your kids is just as valuable as your partner's time earning an income. And, at a given point in time, my husband was making double what I was making when we were in our early marriage. It didn't mean his time was that much more important than my time. Our time is the same. And so I think in parenting, that's a really important thing to get on the same page about, which is, first and foremost, I think most of us work so we can enjoy our lives. And if that's true, then work is just a means to an end, right? Like we're paying bills. Like you're going to your job for 8 hours because we want to pay the electric bill, but you're coming home to be an active parent and a partner and to be a part of this life. And so, those comments are so frustrating because it's like you're contributing regardless of whether or not there's an income involved. Like your work is still valuable. And I think we have to talk about that more, because women, when there is a lack of childcare or a lack of paid leave, are the ones who are leaving the workforce. They are the ones who are staying at home. And so that disproportionately impacts us too. Like when you can't find childcare because the wait list is 2 years long, who stays home? Typically it's mom. Even when she earns more, typically it's mom, because the expectation is that it should be mom. And so I think it's just this tricky conversation that you really can't talk about like as a couple without also addressing all the things like the societal expectations,
Right.
systemic expectations. Yeah, you just can't get around it.
Yeah, we're on a 1-year wait list
It's
for
not
my
a light
2-year-olds. Yeah, no, it's so stressful. And it's like for me to even be here right now, my 2-year-old is at high school with my mother, who's a high school teacher. He's running on the turf with 2 of her students that just graduated, that she was able to say, hey, Pierce is going to be here today. Can you take him to run outside? And they said, absolutely. They are obsessed with
They're
him.
looking for that A.
Oh, they are literally obsessed with him, because I'd brought him in a couple times because she teaches social media marketing. So he was in with me, and
She's
they
like, meet
think,
my daughter.
literally. She's like, please talk about it. And then my daughter is at school with my husband, who's getting his degree in computer engineering.
Oh my
She's
gosh.
strapped in the baby carrier in his computer engineering classroom as we speak. It's just a really stressful thing. It like begs the question of like, how many people are stopping their family growth based off of like childcare
I
restrictions?
think a lot.
Because it's like, I feel like that's among the people in my circle, the biggest conversation of like
Yeah.
finances and
Cost.
childcare,
Yeah.
cost overall. That's like dictating people's family sizes to like, when do you know that you're done?
It's no secret that kids are messy. And when you factor in being type B hot mess moms like Colleen and I, things get even messier. Just like everyone else, our parenting MVP is the Miss Mouth's Messy Eater Stain Treater and all of their other fast, powerful, and kid-friendly formulas. They're designed for families, they're non-toxic, and they're tough on stains but super gentle on fabrics. Click the link below or use name 911 at checkout.
I think that's a question everybody has to answer on their own. I think that's such a nuanced question, right? Or like the answer is nuanced, which is I'm done for different reasons than you're done, right? And I think we cannot ignore the fact that the economy and our finances play a huge role in family planning. They always have, but I think, like my grandparents would say like, oh, there was this family with 10 kids or 4 kids.
Totally.
And everybody just made
You don't hear that as much anymore.
No, you don't
Yeah.
hear it as much anymore. But again, now we're living in dual income homes. And so you need childcare. And so you add a kid into the mix, that's $20,000 a year for
Yeah.
childcare. That's not nothing. That's a lot of money. I think a lot of people are choosing to stop sooner and or delay. I've seen a lot of delay where it's like, you know, I
you
have
don't
my
have to take
oldest.
the hit at one.
Yeah, I'll have my
Yeah.
oldest, and when they get to kindergarten, I'll have another because then I can afford childcare. I can't do two
Yeah.
in childcare, and so, but that's tricky. That has its own unique challenges,
Right.
and so I think finances plays a huge role. But then I also think, again, going back to your partner, it's like there's strong opinions on family dynamics. Like my husband was one of 3, I'm one of 4. We have 4. Mostly because I wanted
Page
4.
1.
Yeah, but it was like for me, I had really strong opinions about why I wanted 4. And my husband actually, he's a middle.
Wait, well,
How
I
did you
want to
get
hear
there?
this
Yeah.
as
Yeah, Colleen, are you done?
it's $1 million question. It's something I think about daily, which we said we were going to be done when I was pregnant. First of all, I was like, I'm never being
I've
pregnant.
said a lot of things.
I'm never being pregnant again.
We all do.
We're going to have 3 kids. That was always the plan. And now I'm like realizing how hard it is to let go of this stage. I feel like it's such a hard stage, but it's also like, I mean, like there's nothing like having a baby, like the excitement of it all.
Especially
And
with 3 kids, though, you've been in this stage for so long.
Yeah.
Like, how do you?
it's really
How
hard
do
to
you
let
part with
go
it?
and feel like we're moving on to being the parents of like elementary aged kids, like to move past the like adorable,
Me
difficult but
crying.
adorable
I'm like-
baby stage. Like it's such like a special experience you get to have a finite number of times. At the same time, like each kid adds a lot. And I'm curious to hear what you think about like the transition from 3 to 4. Like I've heard people say like, I hear people go, once you have 3, like you won't even notice 4. And then I've heard other people say like 4 broke me.
I strongly disagree. You always notice them. I mean,
It's a whole person.
There's a whole being that you have to take care of.
Yeah.
You know, I will say my experience into motherhood was very different than the average. My husband and I were foster parents first and foremost. And our first placement was also our last placement. We adopted them. They were 1 and 2 when they moved in with us. We went from no kids to 2 toddlers.
How old were you?
29. I
Okay,
was
wow.
29. My husband had just turned 30. I was 29. So
Okay.
they moved in with us. And within 9 months, I was pregnant with my first. So we went from no kids to 3 kids in a year and a half, basically.
Whiplash.
And then my youngest was 18 months later. So we really went from no kids to 4 kids very quickly.
You sprinted.
Yes.
Okay.
So my opinions on like 1 to 2, they're just muddied because that's not what my experience was.
Yeah.
But what I will say is I think you have to look at your life, right? And say, what do I want this to look like in 5 years, 10 years right now, right? What do I want this to look like? Also, what are our capabilities financially,
I think that's a
emotionally,
huge part of it,
mentally,
yeah.
right? Some people say like, I can't do more mentally. I can't
Yeah.
do more. I'm incredibly type A. I'm like, I could do this.
Yeah.
It's fine. Like
I can manage
good.
a team.
I'm good. Yeah, totally. I'm totally fine. My husband, on the other hand, was like, okay, this has to be it.
He's like,
this is
please.
it.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm tapping out. Like, I can't. He's like, they overstimulate me. Like, this is a lot. And I think also age of your kids matters, right? So you still, I would consider your kids still fairly young. Like my oldest is 8, my youngest is 3.
Okay.
When he was 5 was when my youngest was born. But that felt life-changing compared to when he was 3 and his other sister was born, right? Like 3 and 5 are so
Huge
different.
in
So
like their
different.
ability to manage themselves.
Yeah. And so like my bandwidth had opened up. You know, I was able to take on a 4th because my oldest was in kindergarten. And also
Okay.
financially, I was able to do it because he was in kindergarten.
Storing for next year when Rory enters kindergarten.
Well, also like I have spreadsheets. Anybody who follows me knows I have tons of spreadsheets, but I have like a
Can you
childcare
send those my
cost.
way?
Of course, of course.
Can we borrow?
Yeah, but like I had plotted out how much childcare was going to cost me for years, for like 10 years, and what each child was going to cost and what the after school care cost. And that played into my decision on whether or not we could have the 4th. And so, you know, I think it's really tricky to make those decisions. I will also say, I know I'm done in the sense that 1, physically, I am not having more children, but 2, when I hold a baby, I don't want a baby.
Yeah.
Like I don't want a baby. What I feel every time I hold them is I want my babies.
Yeah.
Like, I want my girls to be babies again so badly.
But you
I'm
don't
like,
want-
but
yeah.
I don't want another one. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't want to do this again. I wish I could have that. I wish I
Yeah.
could hold them one more time.
You want a time machine, not
Yes.
yeah.
But this phase of life is also so fun. And I think it can be really hard when you enter big kid phase to go back. It's like the idea that I would go back to diapers. I'm like, oh,
Right.
that'd be really hard. I go places without a diaper bag, you know?
Yeah.
Without a bottle and nothing. I'm just like free.
The early stages are hard for a reason. Like I think it allows you to look back on it fondly,
Mhm.
but not long for it in a sense. Cause you're like, that was great, but that was really hard.
Yeah, something that we struggle with is Jake very much wants a third. I have always wanted 3 or 4 children. That's like, I want a big family. I really value that. You don't know when you have all these hopes and dreams, like how you're going to do with pregnancy. I had an extremely traumatic first pregnancy that even though my second was easier, it was still like, I can't shake the first one. I will never carry a child again. I can't do it. And it's like, if babies were delivered Amazon Prime style, sure, sign me up. That's just not reality. And so it's like sometimes that dictates your family size. And that's not what you expect when you're 14. You're like, I want 4 kids. You just don't realize
it's
a whole different thing.
And then I learned what.
And then you were like, oh, actually, absolutely not. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to make those decisions and you don't know till you know, right? You also don't know how hard parenting is. Or, I talk all about the mental load. Some parents will say to me like, I would do a third. I can't. I was like, I'm at my max capacity. I'm burnt out. I can't do it. And so, I think there's so many considerations for everybody when they decide on how many kids you want to have. And ultimately it's your choice, and it's okay to say you're done. It's okay to keep going,
Yeah. Or just leave it up to fate,
Yeah.
You're just like, don't.
I'm too type A for that. I'm like, no, please don't. Let's have a plan.
Like you're the type A friend that we need.
Right.
But
knock some sense into it.
Yeah.
But no, we really appreciate you coming on. This has been awesome. I really hope you continue to make this content. It has helped me immensely. Yeah.
Do you want to share with the people what your where they can find you, what your handle is, and if there's any fun projects you have going on that they should know about?
Sure. So you can find me anywhere: Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all of it at She's a Paige Turner. I also have a website, she'saPaigeTurner.com. I'm on Substack. I'm on LinkedIn.
Everywhere.
I'm everywhere.
I can't miss her.
Which is why you're always seeing my face. Sorry.
For better or for worse.
Yeah. And if you resonate with this, this conversation we've just had, I focus a lot on the mental load of motherhood and inequities between men and women when it comes to motherhood and parenting and careers. And, as to what's coming next, my goal is to just keep bringing this message in ways where it meets people where they're at. So if you aren't on Instagram, I want to find you and I want you to have the tools to articulate what's going on in your life and to navigate this really tricky time of life, which is typically early parenthood, and figure out, how to be as successful as possible with your partner. So you can find me all over the place.
Awesome. Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you.